welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. There has been a change to the network for those of you who have not seen. We are now an official YouTube partner. So if you are over watching us on the MHRT Network, you can go ahead and leave us a super like we get on Captain Jack's channel from time to time. And we will go ahead and read those comments and or questions live on air as quickly as we possibly can. Over to my left, right, depending on which way you're facing your screen, is Coach Defense of the Locked Down Defense podcast. Obviously Tuesday show is the staple there on the network. I unfortunately left a comment early and was not able to make it later live.
Kurt missed you. I prepped him to let him know that you were going to come through the show, and we missed you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had a personal issue that cropped up that forced me to step out. But I do intend to make it as often as I can over there. I love that Tuesday show. Coach Kurt and I, we get into it from time to time. It's wonderful. And down directly below here is Tom Jones, otherwise known as T3. He is Raiders guru, back history. Frankly,
not unusual to have Tom on any show.
And the gentleman singing the show tunes in the bottom right corner, down that way, is the one and only, the salty pirate himself.
Carlton, baby!
Yeah. Doing the Carlton, which is
and I can actually get up because I do have my emergency shorts on, so it's not just underwear. So I do have my emergency shorts right here on my soundboard. So whenever I just walk in with underwear, I do make sure that I put the shorts on. So can you see them? I don't know. Can you see them? Here. Can I finish? I can't finish. Here, wait a second. There you go.
It's not just underwear, it's thunderwear.
Jesus.
So, anyways, that's Captain Jack of the Captain Jack Rackham podcast. You can go ahead and find him on pretty much any major podcast and platform, including YouTube. And Tom, if you'd like people to reach out to you on Twitter, you okay if I share that out to folks, or would you like that kept to yourself?
No, you can share that. Yeah.
So Tom has joined us several shows now, giving us some fantastic Raider insight, as well as just NFL insight in general. You can go ahead and find Tom at T3_sports703 at Twitter. Tom, when you come into the show next via the link there, you can add your Twitter as a secondary piece, so you can kind of have a.
You can do it now. You can do it now. Is it your little three prong and then do edit name?
Yeah, edit your name and add that in.
Gotcha.
And was that a left-handed slight? Oh, for great Raider insight, Tom Jones gives it. I'm like, you know what? Right there.
Man, everything is taken so personally.
It really is.
It's like a positive comment towards someone else doth not mean a negative comment towards you.
Where's my friggin' Grand Marnier? There it is. I'm drinking early because of that friggin' comment, and I haven't sworn yet. I only said friggin'.
And Coach, I did use the Queen's Old English there in honor of your show tunes, because it was often used in many of those Shakespearean, and other musical plays where they used language just like that. So that was intentional. But anyways, I digress from the real reason why we are all here, and that is to talk about football. So today's show is going to be great. We're going to go over rankings of coaches. This was a fan request on our last two shows. It was actually requested on both shows, where we had fans request us to rank the coaches on our teams. You made the request, and we listened. So we have gone ahead and made that a show topic for today for you. We're going to break down the various positional coaches, including strength and conditioning, because every show needs to find some way to razz on the Chargers. And that's going to be our way of doing so on this show.
It's going to be me! I'm going to do it! I'm going to do it!
Coach is giving you his
whoop-de-doo, Basil.
So, anyways, that is the thing. We will start off with the offensive side of the ball. And Coach, we're going to throw over to you for your rankings for the AFC West for the offensive coordinator positions.
Offensive coordinator. I'm starting there. Okay. Well, I'm going to put it to you like this. If your name is Lombardi, you're not high on the list. Off rip. If your name is Lombardi, you're not on the high on the list. Sorry. I'm sorry.
I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. If it's Lombardi, you're on the bottom of the totem pole. Let's start there. But yeah, for offensive coordinator, I mean, it's tough in this situation because, you know, I could just be the homer and say, you know, I think Kellen Moore is better because we think Matt Nagy sucks as a coach. I could just say that, just be hateful. But you have to play into the idea that the Chiefs, you know, Alpha is going to run through Andy, especially with Eric Bieniemy not being there anymore. If Eric Bieniemy wasn't there, was still there, I'd be like, okay, Eric Bieniemy is clearly number one. But I have to still put Matt Nagy at one technically because all he's doing is filtering stuff that Reed's giving him, in my opinion. So I had to put Matt Nagy at one, close to one, and then I put Kellen Moore at two, and just by pure, I don't appreciate this guy. I'm going to put Joe Lombardi at the bottom and put Mick Lombardi in three. Those are my top four offensive coordinators: Matt Nagy, Kellen Moore, Mick Lombardi, and Joe Lombardi. In that order, come at me, fight me, do what you ever want to do, because I'm not changing it. That's where it is. But yeah, I think that's a fair order because again, what the Chiefs office does, you know, with Andy's pure genius as an offensive play caller definitely says that he has to be number one. And whoever his pseudo play caller is in Matt Nagy's perspective, then definitely give it to him. And then Kellen Moore, then Mick Lombardi, and Joe Lombardi. What I got?
Oh, Vince Lombardi.
Unless he comes from the grave, I mean, he'll get a higher ranking than his relatives because these other two jokers, I can't really give any credit to those jokers. I can't do it.
He might do a better job dead than the other guys alive.
He might call better plays from the grave, from post mortis than those two jokers do at this moment. But we'll see. We will see. Now, you know, you have to be honest and say that Joe Lombardi might look better because Sean Payton's going to be the one pseudo feeding the information because of, you know, what he is as a play caller as well. You know, if he just didn't have an OC at all and Sean Payton was the actual play caller, he was both roles, then Sean Payton would be above Kellen Moore. But technically, Kellen Moore, you know, is a odds-on play caller, and Sean is going to give Joe the air quote reins to call plays. Then I got to put him there. Thoughts, comments, concerns?
I agree.
It's pretty cut and dry. I mean, you know, it's not.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
It's not sexy. It's just accurate.
Yeah, I think that before we get going, and I throw over to Tom and Captain, I think it's important that we preface early on in our rankings here collectively as a group and for the fans joining us so that we're kind of all on the same page, so we're not like talking over each other as we're kind of giving our rankings, which is if your head coach is that side of the ball, like, so for example, a defensive guy, or if your coach is an offensive guy, we really ought to be ranking the coordinators themselves, removing the head coach from the circumstance, because the head coaches are in fact separate and above from the actual coordinator role. Yeah. And so with that in mind, I think now that we're all, you know, level playing field. Coach,
I did that.
Yes.
I did that.
Yeah.
Just like you have the little stickers on the gas
exactly.
pumps that said Joe Biden says I did that.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. So I think this is important that we're all talking the same language. And I think that there's far too many arguments that take place because people aren't willing to clarify the premise of what they're saying first before they actually talk. And they eventually find out that they're all talking about the same thing, but that they just argued for the last 20 minutes. So anyway,
I guess you can put a caveat on that too as well. If certain guys that were in that role or are in that role now have standalone tape, in a sense, a standalone experience without the guru above them, i.e. Matt Nagy, i.e. Joe Lombardi. They've been coaches or OCs without the guru, Andy Reid or Sean Payton. So you kind of get an idea of what they're like without them. and what they're like with them. So you kind of gauge it from that perspective as well to say that I know what Joe Lombardi looks like without Sean Payton. I know what he looks like. I know what Mick Lombardi might look like without, Josh McDaniel, hypothetically, something like that. You can also add that to the argument as well if you so inclined. But
Actually,
again, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Coach.
No, because that's why I put Joe Lombardi at the bottom, because I know what he looks like without Sean Payton. So he was with us last year, so I know exactly what you're getting. All core routes. That's it. All core routes all day.
And actually, having said that, I'm sorry, Sean. Chief, go ahead. Don't want to lose my thought though.
No, go ahead. Go with it. I yield my time to you.
Okay. Well, and having said that, I actually originally had Nagy 1 and Kellen Moore 2.
Uh-huh. But
having to think about that, I'm going to flip-flop that. I'm going to go Kellen Moore 1 based upon, I like what he does by himself as an offensive coordinator, whereas Nagy showed enough using the offense that was fed through him by Fat Boy, and he got that job in Chicago, which didn't pan out very well.
It did
but
not.
he does have that offense clicking. But having said that, I'm going to rescind. I'm going to say Kellen Moore, number 1 OC, Matt Nagy, number 2, and this is where I'm going to blow your mind. I had Lombardi and Lombardi tied at 3 because they're both not the greatest, and I I was as a detriment or a deferment. I wasn't even going to bag on your Lombardi so bad. I had them both tied for 3rd. So it was in deference to you, Coach, because I bag on you and your team all the time. I said, okay, we'll just say they both suck equally.
That's fair. No argument. I mean, I'm not going to argue with it. Yeah, listen, I understand.
I'm gonna agree with Jack to a degree, if that makes any sense. I had Kellen Moore number 1 and Matt Nagy number 2. I had that out of the gate, and here's the reason why. I think with Kellen Moore being the offensive guy, and let's be honest, Staley's a defensive guy. He's a defensive guy. Mm-hmm. So I think that Kellen Moore is going to get more free reign to monitor and do his thing with that offense, and it will be more truly his. He'll have more of an imprint on it, and I think that offense will do well. So Kellen Moore, I think, is number 1 on the list. Now, Matt Nagy, for the same reasons that Jack had mentioned, I think a lot of that offense runs through Andy Reid. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So Matt Nagy doesn't have to do a whole lot differently other than putting the ball into the hands of Mahomes and letting the playmakers do what they do. So I don't think that Matt Nagy really is going to have to do a whole lot other than just to maintain status quo, which I think we all agreed on the last show that the Chiefs, I mean, they're at the top. They're the reigning champion, and they will be until somebody knocks them off. So if they continue to do what they do, I think that Matt Nagy can be comfortable in that position. Now, I had Joe Lombardi at number 3, and here's my reasoning on this. Joe Lombardi will do his job, good, bad, or otherwise. Joe Lombardi will do his job. What in the hell does Mick Lombardi do for the Raiders other than get a paycheck and dress up in Raiders gear and stand on the sideline? My answer to that question is not a whole lot. So based on that, I had Mick Lombardi at number 4 simply because I don't think he does anything.
You know what bothers me about Joe though, and because I'm going to give Matt Nagy and Eric Bieniemy credit, and it's interesting when you are under a dynamic play caller, and you go somewhere else and have a job in a different organization. You typically blend that whatever you learn under that person, and it goes along with you, and you have success based upon what you learn from that coaching, play calling guru. But it didn't seem like it blended with Joe Lombardi and Sean Payton, because the offense of what they were doing in New Orleans, and then when you thought that he would replicate that in Detroit and in LA, and he didn't. So that to me gives it's a knock for me in his situation, because it just didn't translate well over to his secondary jobs like it did for Nagy and Bieniemy potentially. So I think that that's an interesting thing that's going to happen. I mean, he's back under Sean now, so it might not matter. But I think that it's interesting that him by himself, after being under that person for a stint, it's like being under Fangio. Fangio's disciples typically do well by themselves, as an example.
Right.
Right. But for some reason, Joe doesn't do well by himself. When he's tied with a guy, he does pretty well. I'll be even interested to just kind of jump off topic to give it another example. I'm very interested to see what your boy from the Jets does this year. What's his name? I lost his name. He was there at the Raiders last year. From Green Bay, he was under LaFleur. Now he was in Denver for a while. That was a S show, and then now he's going to be with the Jets. So will he be good?
Hackett.
That's him. Yeah, will Hackett be good in New York? It would determine whether or not he learned anything and can, I guess you can say by osmosis, allow himself to be a good play caller in New York with the roster he has. But yeah, it's just weird with Joe. I just don't understand how you are on an extremely good play caller for all that time and it doesn't translate when it comes down to you being by yourself. Just weird to me.
And here's the thing: if Russell Wilson comes back and has a stellar year, both Peyton and Lombardi are going to look like geniuses. But if he has a horrible year, everybody's going to get thrown under the bus.
I was going to say, who do you blame in that situation? Because
everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. Nate, not Paul Hackett. Yeah. Nate Hackett. Paul Hackett. Yeah, but that's interesting. I'm going to see how that flows, but I'm just curious about how that's going to shake out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
No, so my ranking on the offensive coordinators is I have Nagy as 1, I have Moore as 2, I have Joe Lombardi as 3, and Mick Lombardi as 4. I think that Joe, in fairness, I think that Kellen Moore had the offense clicking there for a long time, or for a while there in Dallas, but then kind of really failed. He wasn't able to bring the team over the finish line, wasn't able to do some of the things he needed to there. So you need to see that consistency. You need to be able to see that kind of right through the entirety of a season so that he can hold on and adapt when it's needed most. I also think that as much as you'd like to slam Joe Lombardi, and trust me, there's much to
There's just cause. There's just cause.
Yeah, there's much to be desired.
Yeah, I'll take it right here. Right here.
But
this guy.
Ultimately, Joe Lombardi did have a fairly consistent offense that produced reasonably in terms of points. Now, the question is going to be, now that he moves teams, can he transition that offense under a Sean Payton tutelage to then do well and continue to produce? Or are you now going to see Kellen Moore come over and fizzle out or not produce to the same level as Joe Lombardi did? At which point, Coach, I may dread Wednesdays because, I mean, you'll be halfway into a bottle before the show, right?
Yeah. That's the question that people are asking, because they're saying that I guess depending on what side of the fence you are when it comes to Kellen Moore. A lot of people saying that Dak was the reason why the offense kind of sputtered, and they were also arguing about the fact that him and McCarthy had philosophical differences amongst each other, so that was stymieing offense as well. So
run versus throw, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
correct. So with McCarthy calling the plays now this year by himself, and Kellen Moore doing the same in his job, it'd be interesting to see who offense does better. In all honesty, and that kind of proves the point in their situation who was right and who was wrong. Because if Kellen Moore, he clearly has a better quarterback now than he did in Dallas, and so that won't be an issue. So with the better quarterback, and you can do exactly what you want to do, and you wouldn't have to answer to anybody per se when it comes to play calling, because Staley's not going to get in the way, to Tom's point, because he's a defensive guy. He's pretty much got the free reign there. I think that's probably what's most intriguing about the job, because he knew that Staley wasn't going to intervene. You get on even another offensive guy. Say hypothetically he was Sean Payton. He knew that he was going to have to capitulate to Sean Payton in certain regards from kind of play calling. So he just want to, open up his, his playbook and let it fly. And I'm here for it.
That Charger offense is ready to take the next step too.
It is.
I really feel like they are, and I think that a lot of teams are going to have a hard time keeping up with them offensively.
I mean, between the weapons, the quarterback, the improving the O-line, I think we're primed and ready. We just got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I guess the big question here, Coach, is can you at least agree that if Moore does not do as well or better than Lombardi did last season, that Kellen Moore is going to probably struggle to be much better than a subservient offensive coordinator at best in the league going forward?
That's an unfair question because he has Sean Payton overseeing. You talking about Joe or Mick?
No. I am not comparing how they're going to do this season.
Oh, you mean from the production standpoint?
I'm saying in isolation, looking exclusively at the Chargers.
22 Chargers versus 22
Chargers versus 23 Chargers.
I got you.
Bang. Yeah.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. If the offense isn't better, I agree. That if it has to be, it's supposed to be better. It has to be better. Hence why you made the change. You needed to increase the offense, like Tom said. We need to take the next step. So Kellen Moore's got to be the answer to that. If he's not the answer to that, then it might have been a mistake. It just depends. Bo Bros in the building. What's happening?
Bros. So we're pretty much largely in agreement. I think there's some varying degrees of dislike of the Lombardi coaches.
It boils down to what Lombardi you hate more.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. What Lombardi you hate more would determine who's 3 and 4. And I would have put caveat caps list. I think we both put Lombardi at 4. We tie him at 4. We leave 3 vacant.
No. I gave him the bump to 3T. 3T tied.
How about
3 tied. They're still on the podium. They got the bronze, but you got to cut the bronze in half.
And I put Mick Lombardi last because he doesn't do anything.
Well, we'll see.
My kicker here is in my opinion, Kellen Moore kind of did really well right out the gate and then kind of completely petered off as the season went on and ultimately didn't do particularly well. And when I look at where Joe Lombardi, or what he did rather with the Chargers, I actually think that he put forward a reasonable offense, especially given that he had a tremendous number of injuries last season as well, which has to be, you have to factor that in. And so I'm not willing to rank or downgrade Joe Lombardi as aggressively as you are, Coach, in particular, because when you lose 3 or 4 starting offensive linemen, when you lose, I think at one point you were down all 3 starting wide receivers, and I think you're 4th at one point, or at the very least you went all 3 starters, and then your 4th was your number 1, and then your 5th was injured or something like that. It was really insane, just the depth of injuries that you guys had in varying degrees last season, and yet you still put up pretty decent points. You still put up and were quite competitive given the injury circumstance. And so there has to be some credit given to the guy calling the plays.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that you also can factor in how much is that Justin Herbert overcoming the adversity. Because everybody on Chargers Twitter can tell you that, we can have a multitude of clips and plays where the routes stop at 7 yards. And that's everybody. On multiple occasions, like he just refused to push the ball down the field. And when you got a guy with an arm like Justin Herbert's, you have to do something nuanced and something diverse and something different. You can't be, extra predictable. Hence why you get stymied in mid to late season, because everybody knows the score. Defensive coordinators get paid too. They watch film too. So if they know that you're going to honestly not run any route past 7 yards, then I mean it's easy day for me from a defensive perspective. I'll just sit and cover 2 and dare you to do anything different. That kind of thing. So it just depends. I mean, again, it's we could say that the apples to orange comparison, because you look at it like this. I mean, like I said, I go back to Joe Lombardi's argument about him being in Detroit before he came to LA. Detroit's offense was a rough watch, as well. So he has 2 different job stints where he has not been stellar. But when he's under Sean Payton, it's a top 5 offense in certain cases. So, you just have to look at it from that perspective. I think that I'm very excited about Kellen Moore's opportunity he's going to get. I think he's trying to prove to people that he can do it without any hand holding, because I think he's trying to line himself up to be a head coach at some point. So
Kellen
I think he's
Moore
going to
is trying that. Yes.
Yeah, I think he's going to put his best foot forward, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I think that's absolutely Kellen Moore's play here, is that he wants to be he's going there so that he can be the reason.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a fair comment to make, and I agree with that 100%. So with that in mind, guys, that covers the offensive side for all of us. I think we were all pretty fair in terms of how we broke things down. We can discuss back and forth on 1A, 1B, or 1 versus 2. And then I think, again, you then get into which Lombardi you think is at the bottom and which one you think is, slightly above that. And those are all fair. So going on to the complete opposite side of the ball, on the defense side, we're going to go ahead and throw over to Tom first and give us his rankings for the defensive coordinators for the AFC West. You're on mute.
You're muted, yeah.
Depending on what you're saying. But
we can't understand the words that are coming out of your mouth.
I got you. Since I didn't get any show note preps, I'm gonna sponge off of yours. Jack, I'm gonna let you go first, and then I'm gonna dovetail off yours.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have you go first.
Well, thank you and F you, because you know that I lost my notes. Okay, so I got it. Let me remember who the guys are. We got Spags.
Yep.
We got Graham.
Yep.
We got
Joseph on the Broncos side.
Yeah, Van Joseph.
Oh, there you go. Okay, Van Joseph. And then we got Ainsley, correct?
Yep, Derek.
See? And I'm gonna trip your trigger on this one. Number 1 is Spagnuolo. No problem at all.
Really?
Spags. And I'll tell you why. First off, he's a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator twice. We're talking coaches. Capability of the coaches.
Can I ask a question to that? Does a Super Bowl, you being on the staff as a defensive coordinator, winning the Super Bowl, make you a good coach? Does that make you a good coach?
He's a multiple Super Bowl winning coach with the Chiefs, as well as, I guess you forgot when he won Super Bowls for the Giants.
True.
Okay, so I think he's got 4, as a matter of fact.
Does he?
Yeah, because I think he has 2. He's got 2 with the Chiefs, and I think he has another 2 with the Giants. You're going to tell me that there's a better defensive coordinator in a division with 4 Super Bowl rings for the defenses? I'm sorry. Spags, number 1. Number 2, coaching ability, not the team. Coaching ability is Ainsley with the Chargers.
Wow. I didn't expect you to say that either.
Well, again, because I give respect.
Yeah, Spags is a 3-time Super Bowl winning champion. Just to give you a stat. Spags is 3 times.
Okay, well then I missed one with then he only had 1 with the Giants. I know he beat the Pats when they were undefeated.
And he did.
There you go. Ainsley is my number 2 defensive coordinator in this league, and in this division. I'll tell you why. I was upset when he left the Raiders to go to Alabama because of the credentials that he had. I hold this guy in very, very high esteem. Very high esteem. I think that he is much better than Joseph, who's number 4, by the way, just on sheer capabilities of what he showed me as a defensive coordinator. Now, I will give this. Who's got Joe Vitt as the assistant? Is it the Chiefs or the Broncos?
Got me on that one.
Joe Vitt is an excellent defensive guy, and he's going to help out, kind of like Rob Ryan is that senior defensive assistant. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. The team that has Joe Vitt is going to rely, and I think it's the Broncos, as a matter of fact, because that's why.
Joe Vitt, that's the Broncos. Yeah, that's the Broncos.
Yeah. Joe Vitt is going to help Joseph a lot. So Joseph might not suck as much. Okay? Because Dan Joseph sucks. He sucks so bad. How bad is, this is like an old Johnny Carson, man. That he's awful. Now, it's unfortunate because he went to the Cardinals and sucked, and he lost his head coaching spot, which was unfortunate. But Van Joe is not a really, really good coach. But thank God he's got Joe Vitt with him. Vitt came over from the Saints in a package deal, which will help him out quite a bit. Remember, in no uncertain order, like I said, you got Spags number 1, you got Ainsley number 2, you got Joseph number 4. So unless you can't figure out numbers, Graham is number 3. But he's not quite. I think he's kind of like 2A, because I like what Graham can do with the defense when he has the horses.
Players.
When he has the horses, I will like what Graham will do. Okay, but I'm going to give it to Ainsley as my number 2 defensive coordinator in this division. So I know that totally blew your mind, Coach, but I give Ainsley a lot of credit. The problem will be, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about strength and conditioning, the problem will be who the F is on the field for him. And therein lies, that's a segue, guys. That's a tease. But again, Spags 1, Ainsley 2, Graham technically 3, but like 2A. And then you got Joseph. But Joseph's going to get a lot of help from Joe Vitt, so he might not suck as bad.
And I'll just piggyback off what you said. Spagnuolo is the best of the 4 coaches. If we're talking about just coaches, and I think the for Kansas City, I think the whole key this year is going to be the scheme that they run and how they defense some of the faster teams that are going to be cutting through the middle of the zone. So it's the pressure they can bring, and it's the schemes that they run in the middle to the back end that will really determine his overall success. Now, Jack, like you, I put Ainsley as number 2, and I think his whole success is really going to be dependent upon keeping a healthy defense. And I think we didn't really see the best that we could from him. And I think that we will if that defense is healthy. If the defense is healthy, I think that we'll see the best of Ainsley as a coach. Now, by the same token, I think Patrick Graham is a better coach than he gets credit for. He just didn't have a lot of talent last year.
Yep.
So whereas I think Ainsley will do a better job if his players stay healthy. Graham will do a better job if he just has freaking players on the field. I mean, the Raiders, a lot of times I'd go through the lineup and say, now, who's this guy? Where's this guy from? Okay, we dragged a guy off the street from downtown Oakland or backwoods over the hills from Vegas. I don't know. Some of those guys obviously are not going to make the team.
Well, the guys from Oakland are packing, just like the guy in Last Boy Scouts. You got to watch them.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, Tyler Hall came out of nowhere, and you got to credit the scouting staff with that of again finding somebody with talent. But again, Tyler Hall's not making a lot of other rosters, so I think the Raiders kind of got by with who they had left, and by that virtue, I think if we can get more players on the field, I think Patrick Graham will end up proving to be a better coach than he's been given credit so far. I was kind of surprised that he wasn't a sacrificial lamb over the offseason and didn't lose his job, because at that point with a 6-11 record, heads had to roll, and I thought it might be him, but I think they really want to give this organization a chance to build something, and as a result, they did not take that away. I agree that I think Van Joseph is lucky to have a job, and
yeah,
you know,
y'all breaking Van Joseph over the coals here, man. Wow.
No. I mean that I like Van Joseph, but I think he's
a nice guy.
Yeah,
he's a nice guy.
So,
there's nothing personal about Van. He's a great guy. Personally, I like I said, I give him a lot of credit. Well, what the hell has he done?
So for the Broncos fans, I will comment when it's my turn.
You got to go next. I got to hear this.
Yeah, and I will turn my time, Rich, over to you.
So do you know who had the 5th ranked defense last season in the NFL?
Well, according to one of the guys in the chat, Van Joseph did.
You're correct. So do you know who didn't have a top 5 ranked defense in the NFL last year?
Denver.
We were darn close, but in terms of generally speaking, none of the other teams in our division were ranked that high. And so the whole point here is, if you're going to say, what have you done? Well, he's had a top 5 defense, or a number 5 defense in the NFL just last season. So lucky to have a job, I think, is that's more than a little much. And in addition to that, the other piece here that ultimately, in truth, ultimately matters here is your team drafting the guys that fit what you're putting on the field? So as an example, to your point about Graham, who you gave a pass, who did not look very good last year as a coach, he had 2 options last season. 1, hold true to his current scheme that he wanted to run and have it not work out. Or 2, recognize and realize that the players that he had on the field didn't fit what he wanted to run, and try to adapt either leading into the bye week, during the bye week, and then after the bye week to put a different product on the field. Now, we did see some changes with the Raiders defense during that general block of time where you did see some improvements. So there was clearly some changes made. But ultimately, it comes down to this. If the owner and the head coach are not giving you the players to put what you need to in terms of fitting your scheme, your style, what you're trying to do, how you envision things, all that sort of stuff, you're not going to do well. That same concept holds true to what happened with Vance Joseph when he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos, which is where most of the AFC West remembers Vance Joseph from. He sucked as a head coach. I don't necessarily believe that it was because he's not a good coach. In my opinion, I think a lot of it comes down to what the organization was willing to do or had given him as a team in order to put on the field, and who he was either forced or coerced into keeping on the roster, because there were some suspect decisions that were made that I'm pretty sure were not made by him. And the reason why I feel comfortable and confident making that as a general statement is when in Arizona, you saw different player personnel come to the Arizona Cardinals when he was the DC there, and you saw a much better product put on the field. You just did, because you saw different players get brought in that fit what he was looking to do, and you saw different pieces get moved around that better fit what he was trying to do. So if I'm going to kind of, with all of that, I have to put Spagnuolo first. I had to put Spags first. I have to. You can't win 3 Super Bowls, do it on 2 different teams, and have won one as recently as he has without putting him number 1. Where I differ is recent rankings and looking at recency bias. If but nothing else, I will remain consistent with what I've done on other shows, and frankly, what we have all done on other shows. And that is look at what the last season was and say, until you prove me wrong, I'm kind of holding true on that as a line. And I'm putting Vance Joseph as number 2. And the reason why I'm doing that is because he put forward a spectacular defense, and that's his position.
That's fair.
If he comes in and sucks, I'm the first person to change my rankings, and trust me, I am harsh.
Can I add something to that? Can I add something to that? You don't keep getting jobs like Van Joseph keep getting jobs. He's never unemployed. So he must be doing something right in the pros. Like as quickly as people get jettisoned from the coaching ranks because you don't produce, Van Joseph has been in the league consistently for quite a while. His resume is quite long. If you look at it holistically, from his position coaches to his coordinators to his head coaching, he's been in the league for a good while. Just to be clear.
So Rich, that assessment is completely fair.
He is. So basically what my point is, prove me wrong, prove that ranking to be incorrect, and I'm happy to change it. But last year he's earned a ranking, and therefore I have to honor that. Now, he did not win a Super Bowl. He was not the reason why, in terms of the reason why the team did well. So I can't rank him higher. I can't put him over Spag. So I had to put Spagnuolo first, Vance Joseph second. I then have, who's the other guy? I have Ainsley as third. And again, due to the Raiders' defensive rankings, how they played, and look, it is partially because of player personnel, but at the end of the day, the rankings and the product was what it was, and the defense did not do particularly well. And I have Graham as fourth. Now, does that mean that Graham is, that poorly ranked as a D coordinator? No. I think that he, with the right guys around him, can absolutely just write up the list. But we're going based off of what you did last season, and in part also as to who you have around you this season, and we'll wait and see what happens. But as of right now, based on recency bias, that's what I have.
I think Patrick Graham really will be viewed a lot this year in terms of how many sacks the Raider defense generates and how many times they turn the ball over.
That's fair.
Positively, like turnovers we get.
Correct.
Oh yeah. Gotta clarify that. That's a good one, Cap.
Yeah.
Right.
I was gonna say because I saw Coach's eyes twinkle. I says no, he's not gonna have that easy let. That the ball's here, the net's here, the ball's here. I'm like, no.
Mike, I think this is actually a really interesting comment, especially for the two Raiders gentlemen below. If I can just quickly give my 2 cents on this, and I'm interested in what you guys have to say. And Coach, let's have you have the final word on this once I go. Be very careful about your initial assessment on that. You need to give that 2 seasons. Graham came in as his first year as a defensive coordinator. He probably had very little to say in terms of player personnel that was either retained or obtained, given timing and other things of that nature. I think you need to look at what's going to happen this season. Who are they keeping from the draft picks that they got from last year? How has Graham and his staff been able to develop those players to fit and mold into the types of players that they're wanting for that particular scheme? And moreover, and by the way, Mike, I know the players you're referring to on the Raiders, having the right cogs in the right spot or the right players in the right positions makes a tremendous amount of difference. The one thing that the Raiders struggled with tremendously last season, and I don't believe you're factoring this into your comment, is you were missing that middle guy, that nose tackle, D tackle on your defense. Coach, I need you to help me out with the name because I forget it already, but he was one of my favorite players on the Raiders, actually. He got hurt with a bad knee, I think.
He got hurt the last game of the season against the Chargers when he was kicking the Chargers' ass.
What was his name?
The former Charger coach, the big boy. The big boy.
He's a big dude. He's like 3-something. He was amazing.
He's like 3-something before breakfast.
Yeah.
and he got injured, and he was out all last year, so he's still Pilon. There you go.
Pilon, yeah.
Pilon. Philon. You mean Philon? Darius
Philon.
Darius Philon. Okay, yeah.
So,
okay.
Sorry, that really kind of completes what I'm trying to say there is you had Darius Philon there in the center of the Raiders defense in the year prior, as in without Graham there as a D coordinator, who was chewing up double teams, getting pressure on the passer from the center of the field, which then frees up your DNs and outside linebackers to then go and just truck after the quarterback on their own. When you remove that middle pressure, you remove the need for the focus of shifting those guards inwards, where they then can kind of go out. They can then help out, break up those DNs and those outside linebackers. So that's a huge thing that you need to factor into stuff. So I understand where you're coming from. However, you need to give it a proper season where proper changes can be made. And then that's potentially a completely valid point.
And the Raiders didn't have a true middle linebacker last year. They may not have one this year. All the signs are pointing to Divine Diablo coming back and becoming a force. But again, that's unproven. And again, the Raiders did not have that person in the middle, and they haven't for a long time. It's kind of interesting. The most dynamic middle linebackers that the Raiders have had in the last decade were Vontaze Burfict and our friend from 2 years ago,
Denzel Perryman.
Denzel Perryman, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fair assessment. Yeah.
But we got Mickey Spillane to take care of this year. Not only does he write novels about detectives, he plays middle linebacker as well.
When you do fictional characters, it's going to be a long year.
Yeah,
it's going to be a long year.
Catch the Mickey Spillane pun.
I'm not old enough to catch that reference. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We're much older than they are, Jack. I knew that was going to go over their heads.
Look up Mickey Spillane, Coach. Look up Mickey Spillane, not the linebacker. Mickey Spillane.
Okay, I'll put Mickey Spillane actor. How about that? That work?
I'm just hoping he doesn't play like Mickey.
Well, he is an actor, but he's a writer. He's like
writer. Okay, I'll put Mickey Spillane.
He's like
writer.
A 40s noir, Humphrey Bogart, Maltese Falcon type, detective writer.
Have you ever heard?
Made you read in school? Yeah, I got you.
Coach, have you ever heard of Dick Tracy?
I have. Yeah. Yes, I have heard of Dick Tracy.
It's kind of that noir.
Oh, okay. I'm with that. I'm with that. All right. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, I like Dick Tracy.
Very cool.
So this is typically my lane. So I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective when it comes down to my rankings here. And listen to you guys talk. I have to give credit where credit's due. Now, what I don't like about Spagnuolo is this. Now, I love him situationally. I think he's a very good situational play caller when it comes to defense. Now, he's never had a world-beating personnel-related defense. He's never had that with the Giants or with the Chiefs. They haven't had your Broncos, Seahawks, Bears, Ravens style defense. He's never had that from a personnel perspective. But again, I think he is one of those guys. He's very adaptable. I give him credit for that. He's very adaptable. He gets the most out of what he has from a personnel perspective. His accolades are unrivaled. I mean, when it comes down to people in this division, his accolades are unrivaled. So you have to put him in one. Now, as far as overall scheme, like if I had to choose between like coaches in this division who I wanted to absolutely positively learn from the ground zero, I would much more rather learn from Vance Joseph because I love Vance Joseph's 34 scheme. Like his 34 scheme with the Cardinals that he ran, although I don't think he really fully had the personnel to run it like he wanted to. You had ins and outs, injuries and things of that nature. I absolutely positively love his 34 scheme between the time he spent with Houston with, JJ and those guys for that time being when he was San Fran. He was DB coach in the heyday of San Fran's, like when they were really dominant on defense before Shanahan, like when they were Patrick Willis, NaVorro Bowman, those guys. So I really like Van Joseph's scheme from a schematical standpoint. So for me, I had to put Van Joseph too, just from a defensive mind. Now his production and what he's done, his winning record, his ability to be a head coach, that could be questioned. But just from a pen to paper, like X's and O's perspective, I think Van Joseph has got to be 2, in my opinion. 3. I got to get a Patrick Graham. Everybody, Raiders fans want to give Patrick Graham a lot of vitriol, but I look at Patrick Graham like this, and I kind of look at him and Brian Flores the same, is that they spent multiple years under Bill Belichick, who's clearly the best defensive mind in the game. So you can't not be in the building that long with Bill Belichick and not know X's and O's. not no nuances when it comes down to the game of football and the defenses. When it comes down to situations, X's and O's, scheme, you got to know all those things. And I think that Brian Flores has more success than Patrick Graham has. But I think that if you get Patrick Graham the personnel that Brian Flores has had in his coaching career, where he's in Minnesota now and when he's with Miami, I think we had a better career. So I think Patrick Graham for me is third. And just by default, Derek Ansley is fourth because of just from experience. He has the least amount of coaching experience out of everybody in the division. So, I think you need more, I guess you can say, legs to stand on when it comes down to his coaching ability. So I think that for him, he has to be four because of experience and the simple fact that the 3 years he's been with Staley, they have had a bottom tier defense as a unit. So, and you also have to play into the fact that Staley's likely going to be the overshadowing person calling him defensive plays than he has been since Ansley's been there. So that's why I put Ansley at when it comes down to four. So, like I said, Spagnuolo from accolades and, just his adaptability, one. Vance Joseph from a defensive mind, two. Patrick Graham for his knowledge is three, and Ansley four for me. That's what God's land in my listing.
That's fair. So
I'm going to defer to you, Coach. You're the guru, so I'm going to defer to you on those.
Hell no! Don't make his head any bigger than it is.
Ed,
Shit,
listen,
I'm surprised you can fit on camera. His head's this freaking big. Oh, I'm the defensive dude, man. I know everything. Oh my God, you can't have a defense without. You go. I'm the guru.
I understand, Coach. I understand, Cap. You want to be me. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh, hell no.
It's okay.
Oh, hell no.
Cap was doing his best to make Lombardi in person.
He was. But yeah, I mean, I understand. It's okay. But I mean, I know where I make my bread when it comes down to football, and it's the defensive side of the ball. So again, I that's why I lay my head at when it comes down to how I rank the defensive guys. Based upon
I liked everybody's takes, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they had some. Everybody had a little bit of validity to theirs. It kind of made you think. Like I said, I was wavering what I want to put Spags at because I really like Vance. But again, you guys, as through talking through it, kind of, I just have to give credit where credit's due.
And again, I think the important piece here is you have to separate out where someone was as a head coach in maybe the previous years when they've been that head coach. Like, for example, you have to separate what Matt Nagy did as a head coach versus what he's done as an offensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah.
Just like you have to do the same thing with Vance Joseph.
There's not enough use and suck.
Again, going back to Vance Joseph, I just think he had, I think it was a bad situation, for him, and I think that him and anybody has been, any coaches on this list has been in Arizona for any time frame. I mean, they've never been stable. So no matter what you do, if you're in Arizona in the last 20 years, they haven't been stable. So I wouldn't.
Richie, you should have put up Kev's last comment so Coach sees it. And he ain't talking about these, baby. He ain't talking about these.
That was his personal business. I ain't got nothing to do with that.
He's talking about what I'm bringing, baby. Hello. Hi.
You're walking that plank solo.
The real question is he leaving with it? If you're not leaving with it, it don't count.
That's true.
They're brought in and they're brought out.
Okay. All right. Salute. Yeah. Salute. Then if you're leaving with it,
I'm leaving. Yeah. Bring it in. With it, bring it out.
Salute. If you're not leaving with it, you just one of what they call a simp. You're just a simp for,
I was going to call that more window shopping, but aside from that,
yeah. It was what they call a simp in the streets. If you ain't leaving with it, but if you're leaving with it, salute.
Half of our viewers / listeners are highly confused right now.
Yes.
You have to watch Raiders game to see Cap on TV to know exactly what we're talking about.
Exactly.
So we've covered offensive, we've covered defensive. Moving over to special teams coordinator, which I know it's not the one that everyone loves talking about, but if you're going to be honest, and I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what you just said there, Coach, in your previous comment about Graham. The one thing Bill Belichick and Sean Payton
they're big special teams guys. Big
special teams is
big special teams guys.
Boom, 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 way up there. That's a massive thing for both of those coaches. So again, tying back into your previous comment on Graham there, I mean, I have to say that all fingers are pointing in the right direction for the Broncos special teams with who they brought in. I am super happy with who they brought in as our special teams coordinator, which is going to be a pleasant surprise for Broncos country, to be perfectly honest. It has been the bane of our existence for, I don't know, a long time, where we have started off strong and not finished, or just been awful. Sorry, Captain, as you said, there was not enough U's in the word suck in order to describe the Broncos special teams. And so I'm super happy with who we brought in as our special teams coordinator. So I have to say, as a bit of a, deviation, I have to give Mike Westhoff, Ben, rather, and we also have a good kind of guru there in Mike.
I'll say Westhoff being there, even though he's not the
he's kind of the guy, but not the guy. And that's who I was really referring to.
But he's there.
Yeah,
so
he's there. Yeah,
it's kind of like when you're an OC working for the head coach. That's the real OC. Westhoff is the guy. So and unfortunately, I when they get the names out, I put him. I'm like, yeah, that guy is the shiznit in the bucket with the biscuit and all the bag of chips and the snaps and Z formation. That's what it is, man.
So I like Ben, who we have there, but the real kind of cherry on the top, or the push over the finish line, is I've ranked Ben as number one because of Mike Westhoff being, the guy behind him. And because even if Ben totally messes up, Mike won't. Right? Is really what it comes down to. And so I had to put the Broncos there at number one. And then I at that point there, I have to kind of go towards the Chiefs at number two. I got the Chargers there with Ryan Ficken as no, I did not use a different word. As number
I got
three.
your Fickens right here, and we're gonna blow that right out the water in a minute.
Yeah, and then I've got I can't bring myself to rank Tom McMahon.
Well, see, that's bias, and that is bias. That is bias. That is bias. That is bias.
No,
just because you can't stand McMahon because he sucked for the Broncos.
Let me finish. I don't think he is the reason why your special teams unit didn't suck last year.
Yeah,
so
true.
The whole point is he has players on the special teams unit, like the kicker, for example, who is automatic. Like you just have a really good kicker. Like he's just really, really good. That is not Tom McMahon's doing. He was already there when Tom was brought in. I'm sorry. It's not.
I got you.
So
you'll hear me in a minute.
Yeah. So as much as I do have a negative bias towards Tom McMahon, he is not the reason why your unit didn't suck last year, and that's why I have him dropped where I have them. Is that he hasn't elevated things, to the next level, which the coach would be potentially the reason for something like that. He has kept things either the same or down a notch, and that is, again, much to the same, basically familiar territory for Broncos country. So over to Tom and Captain. Go ahead and jump in with your special teams rankings, please.
All right, Jack, I'll go ahead of you. So I agree that Denver's got the first. Westhoff, I think, is the straw that stirs the drink there, and I think that they will do good things if they have any type of kicking game this year. I think that's going to elevate the special teams unit even more. So we'll just have to wait and see what that does. But I highly agree. I think Westhoff, in terms of coaches, I think he's the strongest of the four. I've got Chiefs like you do, Richie, ranked at number 2. I have the Chargers ranked at number 3, so I'm agreeing with you totally. And and you've got to love you, Rich. You have got to love the fact that you all gave the Raiders a gift, which just keeps on giving. Tom McMahon, he when he came over from the Broncos, I thought, oh my God, we are cooked. And to be honest with you, the special teams did better last year than I thought they would. I think in spite of him, one of the things that they did, which I really enjoy the fact that they did, is they encouraged Daniel Carlson to start kicking the ball out of the end zone, so they wouldn't get any returns, many on kick returns, which I think benefited the Raiders a lot. Plus, again, Daniel Carlson kicking the field goals was a benefit. Of course, we had AJ Cole as a punter, so that battery right there made the special teams much better from that standpoint. But I hope that continues to be on the rise and that we can do better things in terms of special teams in spite of McMahon as the coach. I'm still going to rank him as 4, but I'm hopeful that they can continue to do great things in spite of the fact that he's their coach.
I just want to thank McDungus for another super chat here. I brought it up specifically while you guys were talking to allow you the opportunity to respond as the 2 resident Raiders fans here. But I agree actually with your assessment there, Tom. I think it's legit. I mean, Tom McMahon is often circumvented by players in order for the unit to do well. It is not a Tom McMahon being brought in, implementing a thing and having the unit then do better. You have other coaches that kind of fit that mold on the special team side, but Tom McMahon has not been that coach for a while. So, Captain, your thoughts on what Tom just said?
Almost. Okay. First off, if we're going to go, who has the best special teams specialists? The Raiders are number 1. If you go by players, I'll take AJ Cole. I'll take Carlson over everybody. Okay. And then Mike was saying, why did we get rid of Trent Sieg? Trent Sieg had a couple more penalties than what the Raiders wanted. So they ended up getting the Broncos long snapper who knows McMahon's system a little bit better. I can't remember what his name is, but that's how
Bobin Moyer.
Yeah, some dude with a long name. Like just like in Office Space, Muhammad not going to be working there next year. Okay, next week. Okay, whatever, But yeah, Bobin Moyer. Okay, but yeah, they got rid of Trent Sieg because it was a money thing, and he had a couple different penalties at the wrong times, and they said, we're going to take Bobin Moyer because he knows my system. And again, so that is why. And who's the Chiefs special teams guy? Because I have the Broncos number 1 because of Westhoff.
Yep.
Okay, and I have the Chiefs number 2 because I have our boy McMahon 3rd. Thickens. I kind of did like a quick bio type thing. I'm like,
Dave Tobe.
Yeah. Oh, Dave Tobe. Actually, I take it back. I take it back. I had the Chiefs with Dave Tobe number 1 because of Dave. Dave Tobe is an all-star special teams guy, the coach. I had Westhoff 2 with his guys. I had McMahon 3 And then I had Fickens is because he was Fickens. I didn't really know too much. He didn't inspire me with any of the things that was there. Yeah, I know Sieg was part of the. I get it there, Mike, and we'll see if that screws up the placement of the kick. But no, Dave Tobe by himself is the best special teams guy. Why? Because Westhoff is actually a special teams assistant and oversight over who the real guy is. But Dave Tobe has been special teams guru, kind of like what Marv Levy, even though he was the head coach up in Buffalo, Marv Levy ran those special teams in Buffalo and they were immaculate. Okay. Harbaugh in with Baltimore, special teams guy, freaking awesome. Dave Tobe is the man, special teams coach. I had him won the Broncos with Westhoff oversight of whoever the hell it really is. I had our boy McMahon, who can't really F up when you have the best punter and kicker, but he slides down coaching-wise to number 3 because Fickens, I was looking, I'm like, okay, really didn't whatever. Okay, there's no S. I'm sorry, DZ, but I Ficken you. Okay, there you go, DZ, Ficken you. But love you, brother. Thank you for being here as well. And yeah, I saw that. Love you, Captain. Love you too, Mundungus. Even though you don't give me any effing money, give like $1.99 super chat thing, But make sure you support the show. Like, share, everybody. There you go.
Yeah. So I think that's fair because Tobe is,
Tobe's the man.
He's at that level. I think that's fair. Now he would be an example of a guy that is a reason. Like he is a reason why certain things work for the Chiefs special teams. He came in and they have just immediately, improved, right? Kind of the opposite of McMahon. Right? McMahon came in and he just inherited good personnel and they kind of didn't do any better and maybe did worse on some of the coverage units, which is what some of the other fans here said. And that is also indicative of what happened with the Broncos. We didn't think our special teams could get worse, and we were wrong. Our coverage units got worse. Our punt and kickoff coverage units under McMahon just kept on getting worse and worse and worse, despite having a kicker at the time at McManus who was actually quite good. And Denver has typically always had pretty good punters as well, generally speaking.
It's kind of easy to punt at Mile High.
It is. It is. And so, but the thing is that we've typically always had good punters, and we had a pretty darn good kicker there for a long time in McManus. So, again, that wasn't the problem. The problem was our coverage units, and it just got worse. And I think you're going to start seeing that with the Raiders, where your kicker is basically automatic. You have a good punter, but then the other elements, the things that kind of coaching really plays a role in, because if you already have a ready-made player and your punter and your kicker, the coach isn't going to be able to do anything for him. Right. And that's
I disagree with that because when I look at the fundamentals and the number of penalties they got, particularly in the special team side, that's where coaching does matter. And again, I know you have to have players to make plays, but you have to have the coaches to put them in position and go over the schemes and the fundamentals. And I think that's one of the places where the Raiders have fallen down over the last few years.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
That's one of the reasons why Trent Sieg's gone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
it's weird because I look at this from a different perspective. I look at it when, as a guy who played special teams in his high school and college career, I feel like I actually coached special teams a little bit too when I was coaching high school. But I feel like that this particular
You're not
group,
worthy.
I feel like this particular group is more married to the idea of they have to be hand in hand. You need a good coach and you need good personnel. I think those two things have to run hand in hand for your special teams group to be good. And I think that's why Bill Belichick and guys that we named earlier kind of really, really dig into that and make sure their personnel is accurate and to what you want to have on that side of the ball. So the way I did my ring was a little bit different. I married the coordinator with the personnel. And this is where it kind of broke my heart that the Denver Broncos got rid of McManus, because I was high on that unit more so when they had McManus based upon who he had as a coordinator. But being they got an unproven kicker now, per se, that, because you're unproven when you're kicking in Denver until you do it, because it's a different animal to kick in Denver. We all know this, right? So, to the kicker that comes in now does have any level of success like McManus had in his career, it's a wait and see. So, just looking at it from a personnel perspective, I have to put the Chiefs at 1 because they have Butker, they have Thompson, and their return guys. So I just have to put them in 1 based upon that marriage, because I really feel like you are as good as your kicker and your punter are when it comes down to field position and putting points on the board from that perspective. And can your guy return kicks? Now, because I can line guys up all the way long and teach them how to block and create lanes, but if your guy's not dynamic in returning the ball, then it just really doesn't matter from that perspective. So then I put the Raiders at 2 because of Carlson and AJ Cole was your punter, right? Did I have that right? AJ Cole. Right. And you got our guy DeAndre Carter, who's going to be returning kicks for you this year. So had to give him, a notch. So I feel like the Raiders for 2 for me. The Broncos are 3 because, again, McManus is gone. If he had been there, they probably would have been 1A or 2 for me in that perspective. And then the Chargers for me are 4. But I really feel like, and I was talking to DZ about this a second ago, I said that if you look at this 2-3 years ago, the special teams for the Chargers were a mess. Now, Ryan Fickens doesn't have the notoriety as told McMahon or Westhoff, but he has stabilized the unit. Like, we're no longer giving up crazy punts returns. We're no longer giving crazy kick returns. We're no longer doing the undisciplined things that we've been doing from a schematic perspective. So I do feel like Fickens is coming to clean all that up. But the guys above him, from the personnel and the coaching lore and the coaching tree, you have to put them above him because, again, he hadn't been there that long, but he has done well for the unit. So I give him kudos for stabilizing the unit and that not being an issue for us anymore. So I give him credit for that, but I do have him at 4.
And you might change your tune if you see a lot more extra points being kicked than field goals attempted. Maybe.
But again, that's a wait and see. But just from a bird's eye view preseason look, that's why I have it, because of the personnel and the coordinator that you actually have in place. Because, again, one without the other just doesn't work. I mean, if your coach is excellent at drawing it up, but he don't have the players to execute it, and special teams, that is paramount when it comes down to exactly how you get things done on the special team side of the ball. Punting, kicking, field goals, extra points, all that good stuff. All that stuff matters, from a personnel as well as a coaching schematic perspective. So that is highly important. So that's why I have Chiefs 1, Raiders 2, Broncos 3, and Chargers 4.
Again, I think that's it's a fair approach. But again, the important piece is saying what you're doing and why, and then breaking it down. I think that's fair. Now, if you're going to truly look at that, I'd have a hard time if you're premising the primary criteria of special teams based on what you just said, Coach. I'd have a hard time not ranking the Raiders 1. I think their kicker is that big of a difference maker. He kept them in some games last year where they had no business being in the games.
I'm gonna tell you what the tiebreaker was: the kick return game, the punt return game, because you got Pacheco and Tony returning kicks. They're better than DeAndre Carter. Let's just be honest about it. I like DeAndre Carter and all his, what he brings to the game, but they're better and more dynamic at returning kicks than because I think it's a tie. I think Tommy Townsend and AJ Cole are excellent punters. I think Harrison Butker and Dirk Carson are excellent kickers. I think you have either one of those guys, you're good. You're in good shape. And I think you have limited range from 40 yards and in when you want to kick the ball in good conditions. So you can argue all day who's slightly better, who's not. So I think the tiebreaker for me is the punt and kick return game for that particular spectrum. Because I think Tony and Scott Moore are definitely more dynamic kick returners and punt returners than DeAndre Carter is, in my opinion.
Coach, I think you're right, because the Chiefs, they flip the field a lot more frequently for the positive than most any other team in the league. So when you look at it just from that standpoint alone, I think the Chiefs get the upper hand.
Yeah, barely. Like it's close. Cause like I said, I'm not a hater when it comes down to talent. Carlson, and much as I hate to see him line up on the field when he play the Chargers, we already know what the situation is when the ball goes up. Same thing with Bucker. Like it's almost, and it's not. I'm not saying it's automatic, but it's highly to the positive side of them making field goals.
I just want to see Carlson on the field kicking PATs more than he's kicking field goals.
We all do because you're getting 7 versus 6. I mean 7 versus 3.
Right. And that's my thing. And Carlson, and to be honest, Carlson misses more extra points than he does field goals.
That's an argument. Ironically, Cap, that Bucker had the same struggle last year. He was good field goal wise, but the extra point struggle was weird.
Right. I said I don't think Carlson missed. He might have missed 1 field goal last year.
Right.
Maybe. Okay. But Carlson missed like 2 or 3 extra points. So if you look at it that way,
right,
where it should be automatic, especially because it's in as an extra point, and he missed 3 of them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, again, I would like to see Carlson kick more extra points because it means we got 6 points and we're going to do a tack on, which is what the Raiders need offensively, especially with all of the people in this division. We need the offense to score 6, not settle for 3. And I know that, Sharisa Allah Khan, my brother, was saying that, that was, the issue with he who shall not be named, whose initials are Delta Charlie 4. Okay. Because it was always Carlson coming in to bail that ass out. Whereas I want that. And I like Trent Sieg too. I'm reading the comments. They specifically mentioned his issues with penalties as one of the main reasons why he was let go.
I think, though, Jack, the main reason is, like you said, Bobin Moyer basically meshed
and he knows the system.
With the system, and I think that's why.
Yeah.
Now, guys, I'm going to have to leave you all here, but I'm going to leave you with a little mic drop moment here, and you can either discuss this or not. So, we're getting ready to start the training camps, and each team has a 90-man roster, a 91-man because we have the extra guy through the Africa our worldwide program. We got to have the player from Nigeria. But I want you all to think in your mind, and I went back and looked at all 4 rosters, okay, how many players are on your team that have 2 years playing experience or less. So that would be rookies, that would be players coming off their rookie year, and then players who have 2 years under their belt. And I did some looking, and these numbers may surprise you, but again, I think it goes to the fact that the league overall is getting younger. Okay, of the 4 teams, this may surprise you. The Raiders have the fewest number of players in that group at 40. Okay, so they've got 40 players on their 90-man roster right now with 2 years of playing experience.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me either because I feel like all other 3 teams all were young in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, the Broncos have 44 players, the Chiefs have 45, and the Chargers have 52. So 52 of the 90-man rosters have 2 years of experience or less.
We could fill a whole team with our young guys.
Yeah,
exactly. But again, that goes to show the way that some of the leagues are trending. You want to. It's been commented over and over. You want guys who are, particularly the rookies, first round rookies, on that 5-year option. You want to be able to get that 5th-year option, but you want to maybe be able to make your hay while the players are playing on cheap deals. And this really speaks to the entire league. This is kind of where the league is going right now. So absolutely. I was kind of surprised, but then when I took a step back and took a look at it, it didn't really surprise me all that much. But I thought it'd be interesting to note. So players with 2 years playing experience or teams with players with 2 years playing experience or less. The Raiders right now have 40. The Broncos have 44. The Chiefs have 45. And the Chargers have 52.
Do you know why else that's the case? Is teams have been able to stack their practice squad with additional players. Now, you've also been able to hold veterans on those practice squads, but the practice squad is for those developmental roles, and having more young guys kept on your 90-man gives you and affords you that opportunity in the early preseason games to hold on to those developmental players and get those diamonds in the rough that you're looking for on 4-year cheap deals that play at a starter or a 1B role, for example, for a starter, which is the ultimate value for any NFL team, so they can then get comp picks when they end up walking.
And this doesn't factor in late signings that you may get. I know the Raiders are looking at 2 in particular, 2 free agents, Patrick Queen, linebacker, and Marcus Peters in the defensive backfield. Now, if they sign those
Queen
2 guys,
cut?
so who?
Patrick Queen got cut?
No,
he's on the trade block.
Oh, trade block. Okay.
Yeah. So we're looking at a potential trade there. So
I thought I missed something.
If you bring those guys in again to make room for them on the roster, do you get rid of one of the young guys or do you get rid of one of the veterans? So again,
the old guys won't be first on the list, in my opinion.
Probably so, unless you have some guy who's just filling a roster spot. So anyway,
especially an old guy with a big contract.
Moaga gets cut. And you know what? Which is unfortunate because Moaga's wife is freaking hot as hell.
Well, that don't matter, obviously. Having a hot wife don't guarantee a roster spot.
Exactly. That's right. Gentlemen, thank you all for having me in.
Appreciate you, Tom.
Folks, reach out to me on Twitter, T3_sports703. And for those of you who are Raiders fans and also Chargers fans, Coach is actually going to be coming on our show, the Only Nation podcast, in a couple of weeks, and we're going to chop it up. And I'm putting together a special show, a little crossover edition that are all things Raiders and Chargers. So we'll be collaborating on that, and look forward to that down the road too. So I look forward to getting together again with you all next week, and then of course down the road. And of course, Rich, the invitation is open for you as well. We'd love to get you on our show, and I can do a little crossover thing with Raiders and Broncos. So, and of course, Jack, you and I collaborate all the times.
I was going to say it's been a while. I'd be more than happy to come on providing I have time. But I will make time.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Listen, you all have a terrific evening, and I will catch you all on the flip side.
Have a good one. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
So now for the kind of the big kind of non or kind of adjacent coaching spot that you kind of call it the rung down, but is clearly an important one on all the teams, which is the strength and conditioning coach. In my opinion, one of the undervalued and most excuse-driven coaches on a roster. In my opinion, it's up to them and the head coach to work together to put together the proper schedules and diet and all that other kind of stuff for the team and the players. And yet we do seem to see certain coaches, we'll say, well overstay their welcomes despite persistent and consistent negative results on the team. I think again, we saw that in our division. Even the Broncos started to see that on our team. I think Landau was the gentleman's last name for the Broncos. The Broncos in the last 2 seasons have had major injuries and lots of them, not unlike the Chargers coach. And yet he stuck around. And the Broncos have, in fact, also moved on and got a new coach stepping in for us this season as well. So if we're going to rank,
it's really rough to do this because, I mean, we got a lot of turnover. I know for sure we just got to put the Chargers at 4 because we just got a brand new coach. He haven't even had a season yet. Like, he just got here.
So I have tied for third.
Okay.
Chargers and Broncos.
Right.
We don't know how they're going to do. We have not seen how either of their teams fare this year versus last. And frankly, I think both of our teams, yours and my, coach, have the largest amount of growth opportunity from that coaching position on our rosters.
Yeah, because we were banged up last year holistically. We had a match unit on both rosters.
So both the Broncos. So at the end of the season, the Broncos ended up winning. I think even overall, we had either the most injured or the second most injured roster, but we had the most amount of cap on IR by the end of the season.
Yeah, we were competing for that towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
It's not something I want to compete for, obviously.
No. So
yeah.
So at the end of the day, I see Broncos and Chargers with our strength and conditioning coaches. Just for the benefit of those who don't know who they are, Lucius Jordan is the new strength. That's an assistant. Jonathan Brooks is the head strength and conditioning coach for your Chargers, their coach. And for the Denver Broncos, the head strength and conditioning coach is Dan Darnimple. I don't know. That's close. That's Darren Nimple, whatever.
Dalrymple.
Darnimple?
Something nipple.
Dalrymple.
Something nipple. Something nipple. Okay.
So Dalrymple. Come on, man. It's not that effing difficult. Even
we were messing up on purpose, Kevin. After you said it, right? We're just gonna mess it up on purpose.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
So either way, I think that just based on what we saw last year, we have to be tied for third. And then it actually gets really interesting. I then rank the Chiefs' strength and conditioning coach as second. And that is in large part simply because we started to see some of the key positional players on that roster start getting hurt last year when you didn't normally see that on the Chiefs. You saw a lot of those guys kind of maintain health and do well, but you started to see their health decline. And I think that falls on that coach. That's literally what their point is. Like, can you stay healthy? Can you, so on and so forth.
I mean, but can you honestly say it was a failure being that they won the Super Bowl and they were largely healthy when they got to the Super Bowl and at the very last week of the season? It's a rough ask. They were pretty healthy come the end of the season. Like at the Super Bowl, I think most of their guys were available that week.
They were available that week, but the question is, and yes, they won, so fine. But I have a hard time when you start seeing. Let's put it this way. I saw key players get hurt that typically don't normally get hurt. And I'm willing to say that might be a one-year fluke. But again, I'm going to remain consistent with what I'm ranking and why I'm ranking. So I'm not going to give a pass for one coach because I would like to think differently. So I saw key and core players on the Chiefs get hurt, and that's the most recent season. Yes, they won the Super Bowl. So great. Good for them. Congratulations. But it does not mean that that did not happen or they did not get hurt. And so therefore I have to rank them down. And last, I have to put the Raiders guys number one because I didn't see a tremendous amount of huge injuries on their team, aside from a few players that are always hurt anyway. And frankly, most of those are not even on the roster anymore. So clearly the coaching staff with the Raiders agreed with getting rid of those players. And so I can't necessarily put that on the coach.
Yeah, I was going to say if Waller, Perryman.
Yep. So if they're consistently getting hurt, and that seems to be a player problem where regardless of what they do, it happens. The coaches there now with the Raiders said, look, the best ability is availability, and we believe that we can get guys that are at minimum comparable or at least multiple guys that can fill that role for us. We would rather have availability over ability per se, and they believe that the ability can be coached or taught. So I think that's
fair. Diablo was out for a large portion of the year. He's back this year. Hobbs
was. He gets hurt again. But hold on, if he gets hurt again, he's gone next year. I guarantee it.
What, Hobbs?
No, Diablo.
Yeah, and that's yeah. If he gets hurt this year, fool me once, fool me twice type thing, and it's unfortunate because he has the best ability of all of the young linebackers that we have because we don't really have a lot of good linebackers. There's Diablo, who's coming back from injury. We got Masterson, who was in UDFA that played well. And then we have my boy Mickey Spillane. He's not Mickey, it's Robert, actually. But, look him up, Coach Mickey Spillane, okay? We got Spillane that came in, and he's basically a slightly younger version than Perryman. He's a thumper, but he's not a guy that can cover anybody. So we swapped out for age and not as injury prone. So that's what we did there. As far as, like I said, the strength guys, Deuce is not the strength and conditioning coach for the Raiders. He's the assistant. But I defy you to find anybody that is more jacked up on roids in this division than Deuce Gruden. Okay? Or he's big. Yeah, he's okay. He's big because he lifts, but I'm sure that he had a little bit of help. Okay? Not that I would attest to it in a court of law, because that would be slander or libel. One of them is verbal ones, the other one's in the paper, and I don't want to be put anything. But yeah, Deuce is friggin' jacked, but he's not the strength and conditioning guy. He's actually the assistant. And I like your list. And from what I was saying to Coach, I was going to F with Coach. I was going to say everybody's tied for 1, and then the Charger guy is 4 because all the Charger guys are always injured. And I forgot. The Broncos were injured a lot too. So the Raiders and the Chiefs guys are tied for 1, and then you guys are tied for 4. Even though it doesn't work like that, but that's about the way it was. So yeah, I remember. It's like, yeah, the Broncos had a lot of injuries.
Math must have worked differently when you went to school.
Yeah. I'm trying to give it to you as much as I can. But yeah, I mean, but if you do it that way, it's 1-1-3-3.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But
it's interesting because I have to give the Chiefs 1 because they had the least amount of guys on IR for the entire year. Like we talk about season, and they only had 2 guys on season-long IRs. Everybody else was healthy for the most part of the year on their roster.
So they had good drugs.
Listen, however you get it done, I can't prove none of that. So just by sheer numbers, like I said, the Chargers and the Broncos were competing. I'm looking at this graphic. It's full of red, and the red means IR for multiple weeks. It's full of red on both sides. So again, I think the Chiefs first, Raiders second, Broncos, and pick one when it comes to Broncos and Chargers. They just pick one. Like I said, they were competing for injuries. Now I would say if you had to go by production and record, like despite the fact that we were so injured, we did make the playoffs. So if you had to give a nod and put person 3 and 4, Chargers 3 because they did factor in they did make the playoffs despite all that, and the Broncos didn't. So I would have to rank it in that order if I was forced to give a number for each person.
Oh, if you were forced to, I'm going to throw that big P word because the Chargers very rarely make the playoffs. So I got to use that word, playoffs. Playoffs.
Hey, we made the playoffs in the last 10 years more than you have. So let's be real about it.
Last year.
Last 10 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah. True. Playoffs?
No, but
playoffs.
I would disagree with that as an assessment, Coach. I mean, the Broncos we were low-key really badly hurt last season and just didn't get the same commentary and kind of because we weren't playoff team, like we just weren't good by the mid-season basically, and they knew it. All the other commentators were saying the Chargers are really hurt, and like the throwaway was, when you saw the graphic, that the Broncos were above the Chargers in terms of injury on IR,
right,
either players or cap space. And they just said, well, look what the Chargers are, but they didn't mention like in the division the Broncos are even more hurt. They just didn't care at that point because like we sucked. So
hey, I don't think it was until we found that graphic on Twitter about who was the most injured towards the end of the season we actually knew the numbers. Yeah, I think that's when we actually noticed it.
Well,
but
I knew the salary cap that we had on IR because it was making its round through Broncos country, Twitter and Facebook.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense.
At some point when you have like your top 3 or 4 players on IR, you start saying, that's a lot of money not playing right now. Right?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. I do think, again, like whether it be defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, there's certainly certain positions on all of our teams from a coaching perspective where for some of our teams, there's nowhere to go but up. And I think that this will be a really interesting and very telling year. For starters, for example, Coach, will Staley take the advice of the new coordinator?
He better.
For strength and conditioning, will he implement changes that clearly need to take place in order to get you guys out of the injury bug or out of the hospital room, so to speak, and on the field, right? Similarly, Sean Payton, is he headstrong and will he listen to the strength and conditioning coaches to allow his team to adapt so that they can again get out of the hospital room and on the field? And I think that's those are all fair comments because of players and all that sort of thing. So now Peyton also, when he was with the Saints, did have a handful of injuries when he was there. So I think there is some
towards the end. Yeah, towards the end they were a little bit banged up.
Yeah, so I think there is some proven record to Sean Payton perhaps needing to listen more to the experts that he has on the team and maybe get out of his own way. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Just before we head out, guys, super quick round the room for one thing. Coming in and up to camp as we get into mandatory camps for all of us, what is one thing quickly that we think or that we would like to change on our roster today that would make us immediately better? Coach, I'll start with you.
Our run defense.
Okay. Captain?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What is the one thing that you would want to change right now? Just one thing on your roster that would make you immediately better heading into camp, mandatory camp.
So knowing who our quarterback will be.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I cannot disagree with that. Coming from as a Broncos fan, I have been in your position more than once, and so good for you. That's a good one.
That's the honest truth.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
listen, I wasn't sure where you were going to go with it, but that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a really good one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
For me, mine is not on the defensive side of the ball from the running game, Coach. Mine is on the offensive side. We've had a few injuries at the running back position, and my number one thing is I want a more solidified running back room so that as a fan, we kind of have a better idea of what type of game to expect, because the number one guy right now has coming back from an absolute wicked bad combination of
nasty injury. Yeah.
And so having a more solidified running back room to kind of know what to expect and what to see. Coming from Mile High Stadium, we've been a long story tradition of really, really good running backs coming through Denver. I'd like to kind of see where we land with the running game, so I know what to expect, because I'm a huge fan of the running back position, despite that it's been devalued. That's a shout out to a recent post that Coach had. I thought you'd appreciate the softball throw over there.
If you didn't say it, I was say, by the way, I did a video.
That's a
Check
softball
it out.
throw to you, man.
The devaluement of the running back is a video on my channel, posted already, ready to go for you. Check it out if you haven't. Like, comment, subscribe as always if you love the content.
Fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do us for today's episode of the Wild Wild West podcast. If you are just joining us, I should have mentioned this throughout the show, but I did not. Click those like buttons that you see below there. It helps us with the algorithm and gets more fans that are similarly minded to all of us and love the game of football and each of our divisional teams. We really do appreciate it if you subscribe to each of our channels. Again, it does the same thing with the algorithm and gets more people involved. If you would like to catch our shows and not miss an episode, there's a little bell icon on the YouTube side of things. And make sure you set those notifications to all. YouTube has messed with that recently, and it will only give you limited. You need to select all so you never miss an episode that we post on each of our channels. And ladies and gentlemen, where the West Side is the best side. We will see what?
Jack Kenna has a very, very true response. We did not rank the head coaches.
Whoa! Okay, we are gonna roll this back because that's kind of a big one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought that you were waiting for that as the finale.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely right. Wow, I can't believe we missed that one.
I thought you were waiting for it to the end on that one.
Do we have to argue who one is? I mean, I think we all can agree that Andy Reid is one.
Yeah, Andy Reid's one.
Andy Reid's one. Now, where you go from there is your business. Like I say, Andy Reid 1, Sean Payton 2.
I agree there.
Brandon Staley 3, and Josh McDaniel 4. That's my ranking.
I agree on all those.
There it is.
Done.
Quick and easy.
Maybe that's why we didn't do it. But hey, at the end of the day, I think it's important to get it out there and get it on record. I agree as well, and I'm going to go on a limb and assume Alex agrees with that ranking as well.
I'm sure he does. At least at
one.
Yeah.
He's like, yes.
Right.
And we'll go from there. Ladies and gentlemen, until next week, we'll be here to have some other great topics. And guys, go ahead and fire us out some comments down below for other topics you'd like for us to cover on our teams. We will go right down into the weeds if you want us to go in that direction. Until next week, where the West Side is the best side. Peace.
Yeah!
Feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.